Hey guys, Buildzoid here, and if you're wondering why the sound is kind of different, it's because I'm on the clip-on lav mic. I'm not on the usual desk mic. Anyway, what I'm going to be showing you today is why I do like if you watched some of my LN2 live streams, you know at the start of the live stream I will often basically hit the LN2 pot with a hairdryer. This one, this one right here more specifically, for a little bit of time to do something that on the streams I call glazing. So today we're going to take a look at that. The LN2 pot I'm using here is a Kingpin Tech 9 Fat, so that's a Kingpin pot. And the reason I'm using this thing is it's heavy, but more importantly, it has very little surface area. So it sees the biggest benefit from glazing compared to some of the other LN2 pots I have lying around. This thing is really, really slow to pull down. So basically, the whole point of glazing is that normally, if you just, pour liquid nitrogen on something that's currently at 22.5 degrees centigrade, I mean Celsius, if you, pour liquid nitrogen on something at 22 degrees Celsius, it won't come in contact with the actual material, which is why, I have LN2 right here, and I can do this without, getting frostbite from doing that, because the LN2 doesn't actually come in contact with my hand, and my hand is incredibly blown up because obviously the lighting is set up so that you can see down in there. Wait, what about down here? Oh, whatever. It's just blown out. There's nothing I can do about that. Anyway, so, I can pour LN2 on my hand is fine because the LN2 doesn't come in contact with me because of something called the Leidenfrost effect. Basically, the temperature differential between my skin and the liquid nitrogen is so high that it boils so quickly and so violently that any LN2, that I spill on my hand is actually floating on a cloud of gas. And it can't actually cause, it can't give me frost burns because it can't come in contact with my skin. And the same is a problem with LN2 pots because this is currently at 22 degrees, so, I'm a human. I should be somewhere around 32, 35 degrees on my skin, maybe a bit lower than that. This is an LN2 pot, so naturally that's just going to be sitting at room temperature. Anyway, if we pour some LN2 in there, you can see how the temperature really doesn't drop all that fast. We've like, you can see it's not really boiling that quickly. And the temperature really isn't changing that fast. And that is a problem, because if right now I had a GPU dumping 500 watts of heat into this LN2 pot, or more, that LN2 isn't boiling, well, may or may not be boiling at a rate of 500 watts, right? Because for a given, like, depending on how quickly the LN2 boils, that's how much energy it pulls out of the actual LN2 pot. That's why the temperature drops. So, yeah, and as you can kind of see, we've gotten to a point where there's literally just liquid nitrogen just sitting in there, not going anywhere. This isn't working. This isn't going to cool a damn thing. So what you need to do to get around this is glaze the LN2 pot. And you can do that once the LN2 pot is below ambient temperature. It generally is easiest to do below, well, the colder you are, the easier it is to do, but you can start you can do it at -20, -40, relatively easy. If you go below that, it's actually easier to do. You can do it with a hair dryer, a heat gun, a blowtorch. I'm going to use a hair dryer just because that's what I always use. So we're at 10 degrees. I'm just going to hit it again. There. And it's still, it's still incredibly slow. And the Leidenfrost effect for liquid nitrogen stops working at like -120 or very cold, very, very low temperature. So if we have a GPU that stops working below -90 or below -100, we're going to have a hard time trying to transfer heat from the LN2 pot into the LN2, unless we do something about this, because it's not boiling quickly. So I'll just try pull it down a bit faster by giving it more. There we go. But you can still see, like, that is slow. And we can make that a lot faster using the hairdryer. And what we're basically going to be trying to do is build up a layer of frozen condensation on the inside of the LN2 pot, because the thing about liquid nitrogen is that it is liquid, and it will, if I have it right here, it will soak. You know, this is a, okay, you again can't see anything because of the lighting situation. This is a dry blue shop towel. So if we dunk that in there, right, you can see that now that's wet. So liquid nitrogen will actually soak into materials. And if I tried to touch this, like with pressure, that would suck for me. That would actually give you, quite a nasty burn, because once the liquid nitrogen soaks into something, the Leidenfrost effect is no longer capable of like pushing it away from various materials. So if you build up frozen condensation inside the LN2 pot, that condensation is porous, and it'll absorb, well, basically the liquid nitrogen will soak into it, and it will now, boil much more violently. So that's what we're going for. And we're already at minus 12, so I'm going to hit it with the hairdryer, and hopefully you'll be able to see the difference of, like, right now you can see that the internals are shiny metal. Luckily, the aluminum extension isn't at quite the same temperature as the copper yet. Otherwise, touching bare metal with that's cold, terrible idea. But this isn't that cold yet. If this was at like minus 30 and I touched it, then my finger would probably get stuck to it. Anyway, let's hit it with the hairdryer. And I think the difference is obvious already. You can see how now the internals are a matte white. But this is probably not enough, because if we hit it with the LN2 right now, we'll see if it's any... There's definitely a difference in sound, but it's not really dropping any faster in temperature. So this isn't good enough yet, because the temperature is still dropping about as fast as it was before. But that's fine. Once we're at minus 20, the hairdryer will have a much easier time actually building up that condensation layer. So let's just wait for most of that to boil off. Okay, yeah, and this is one of the problems. You can see how the actual LN2 has actually washed away, because now we have shiny metal again. Right? Like that's just shiny metal again. So it has actually washed away that condensation that I built up with the hairdryer at minus 12-ish. That's all gone now, which is why the temperature isn't dropping all that quickly again. I'm going to have to start using a towel to touch this, because I do actually like having fingers, or at least I don't need to injure my fingers anymore. I burned them enough working on doing soldering work. Don't need to have frost burns next to my heat burns. Anyway, I'm going to start hitting it again. Yeah, and so you can see how the black aluminum is now white. And we actually have water running down that, because that's a really thin section right there, so obviously that's above 0. So yeah, now you can see that the internals aren't shiny anymore. It's just white. So it's starting to glaze over again, but it's not enough. I'm going to try build up a lot more. There we go. Okay, let's try hit it with the liquid nitrogen now. And yeah, not much of an improvement. I'm going to guess I just washed it all off again. It's a tad faster. But yeah, you can see how the metal is getting kind of re-exposed. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of an issue. I'm going to try hit it with the hairdryer again. Eventually, I'm going to get this to the point where I'm going to hit this, and with the update rate of this thermometer, it's going to be just dropping like 1 degree at a time per update. So that's what we're aiming for, because you can get it that fast. Okay, let's see. I think I've done it now. And yeah, it's getting there. We're dropping about 0.5 degree per update. You can see how actually the LN2, you can actually see how the LN2 evaporated a lot faster than it would before, but still not enough. We can get it better. I'm gonna try not have the microphone in the airstream from the LN2 pot. Go. Try run it a bit slower. Now, if you just, if you're just benchmarking for a long enough amount of time, air will naturally fall in there and build up a condensation layer. Blowtorches supposedly work a lot better because byproduct of the of burning well, basically the byproduct of the combustion that they run is water. One of the byproducts is water vapor. So that'll actually condense right, that'll immediately go straight into condensation when it comes in contact with the LN2 pot. Actually, one thing I should have tried demonstrate is there's actually a very distinct difference in the sound of an LN2 pot that's dry versus one that's glazed. But it's kind of too late. I'm not sure if the microphone is picking it up. It probably isn't. But basically, when I hit this with LN2 right now, there's a very loud crackle it makes. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, we're getting almost that 1 degree per update rate, almost. Yeah, actually, yeah, we're past that point. There. So now it's going fast. Obviously, what you can sort of see what's going on is the actual holes in that LN2 pot, they're not glazed, so the LN2 ends up just pooling inside them, but that top, because if you look from the side, the upper portion of the, shouldn't be touching that, it's cold. So you can see how basically, let's get a screwdriver here. So this, there's like a, because the copper is cut in a bit, so there's like a top section, and that area, so this top layer right here, that's all glazed over, kinda. I just scraped some of that off. Basically, that's glazed over. The inside of those holes is still completely barren, so the LN2 just sort of pools up in them. And you can see how we have LN2 in there, and the temperature's not really doing much of anything. But if we fill it past those holes, it'll actually go fast again. Like like the LN2 in the upper portion of the LN2 pot is just gone immediately, and the temperature falls off a cliff. So, yeah, that's what glazing is about. That's why I hit the LN2 pot with a hairdryer. I don't know if I've demonstrated this well enough, but I guess roughly you should be getting the idea of this. This isn't, well, actually, at this point, this is fast. And we're only at minus 50, so, like, that, yeah, that's quick. That's really, really quick at this point. So, on the big hits at this point, this is now fast. So, yeah, and normally this is a really, really slow pot, as I demonstrated right at the start of the video. Obviously, it would probably make sense to do a demonstration with the LN2 pot without any glazing. But at this point, I don't really think I can remove it, but we can try. Let's see. Just for demonstration purposes. Let's try that. I don't think it's going to work, but let's see. Yeah, you can, okay, let's do that. Yeah, okay, so I slowed it down again a little bit. You can kind of see how, yeah, it's slower. You can sort of tell it's slower. The problem is, as this temperature keeps dropping, once we go past a certain point, the Leidenfrost effect will stop being a thing, and it'll just fall off like it'll fall off a cliff. I don't think I have enough. Yeah, I don't have enough liquid nitrogen to get it to that point, and I'm saving the rest of my liquid nitrogen for the 7700K. There's some stuff I want to do with the 7700K. I might also have a 2700X turning up pretty soon. So I don't really want to finish off the rest of my limited liquid nitrogen supply. Well, I mean, I wouldn't finish it off. I still probably have something like 32, 33 liters. But yeah, the 7940X really took a toll on my supplies. So yeah, this is it for the demonstration of glazing. But you can basically see what it's all about. It's about building up a condensation layer on the inside of the LN2 pot to make the LN2 pot faster. The more condensation layer you have built up, then the further into the structure of the LN2 pot it goes, the faster the LN2 pot will respond. Now, to some extent, if you get LN2 pots with more intricate internal designs, this is less important to do because the more intricate internal designs will naturally just boil LN2 faster. This right here, I mean, this isn't really like... I'm not going to say it's a bad LN2 pot, because it isn't once you get it glazed enough. But if I'd argue you could probably glaze a block of copper to be fast with how well this technique works. But yeah, you know, there are LN2 pots which would drop quicker even if you didn't. Well, they would drop just as quick as this does. Well, nah, not really. But there are pots which would do the initial cooldown faster than this would. But obviously once you're in the negative temperatures, this works fine after glazing. So, yeah. That's, actually we could probably glaze the holes down there at this point, but I decided I'm not going to use more than a liter for the demonstration, so, I'm not gonna pour any more down there. But, yeah, so... that's glazing an LN2 pot. The whole goal is to basically just make an LN2 pot that's slow, which incidentally, they're all initially going to be kind of slow. There's a limit to how much you can speed up an LN2 pot with its with complicated geometry. So yeah. But this gives you some idea of how much difference you can make, especially if you're on on something like this, or really any LN2 pot. You should glaze it, because it'll if it's already fast, it'll just get faster, and if it's slow, it'll get a hell of a lot faster. So that's why I chose the Tech 9 here, because if I used something like, say, the Raptor 4, the Raptor 4 actually drops pretty quickly all on its own, just because of the internal design. And then after you glaze it, it just hits sort of the, well, I've not actually The thing is, I've never actually had a scenario where the Raptor is both glazed and I need to dump a ton of LN2 into it, so I don't know how quickly it would drop compared to this. As you saw in the video, this drops really, really quick once it's glazed and you just dump LN2 into it. It really does drop like a rock. I've not done that with the Raptor because generally speaking, after it's glazed, that thing absolutely does, like, it just needs little small drips of LN2 to get pretty rapid temperature changes out of it. So, yeah. And I imagine if I kept glazing this for long enough, it would get to the point that those holes would get glazed over, and then, you know, this should act actually pretty similarly. So, yeah. If you're running an architecture that goes all the way to full pop, this is irrelevant. If you're on something that doesn't work below minus 100, minus 120, then, you know, this is actually worth doing, because at those temperature ranges, the lead-in frost effect is still a thing, and it'll prevent you from removing as much heat as you would like to. So, yeah, that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment down below, or any questions if you have any, or corrections. I might have gotten something wrong here. What else is there? Right, if you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, there are shirts, a PayPal, and a Patreon. You can find a link to all of that down in the description below. I've also finally listed my 5930K that I want to get rid of, and there's like a bunch of motherboards that I'm trying to get rid of as well. You can find a link to those down in the description as well. It should be called the AHOC Junkyard. Yeah, and I want to get rid of those, so it'd be great if somebody bought those. So yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. Like, I've already mentioned that. And goodbye. Where's that stop button? Oh, there it is.